Transparency, everybody needs to have access to all the information there so that they can take the opportunity to exert influence. And efficiency. So these are the values that are they try to build in. The inventor is Gerard Entenburg, a Dutchman, and he invented the basic ideas in the 60s and developed it. He was a very privileged man. He had very rich parents, idealistic parents, and he had some ideas about creating organizations, so they bought him a factory. A defunct electronics company. It wasn't working very well, so they bought it, and then they gave it to him and say, do your thing and see if it works. So this is the Endenburg Elektronik, and it is still in business, and it has been a laboratory for experimenting with this system. His inspiration was that he, as a child, he lived in a Quaker school, and they had a consensus system, but they had a spiritual background that made this possible. But the harmony and the good feeling about the decision process, he liked that, but the problem is that to get there, it took too much time. And in organizations, you have people coming in and out all the time, so you need to have a structure that establishes this atmosphere much more quickly. And he was an electronic engineer, and he knew a lot about communication theory and modern cybernetics and feedback loops and how to have information run in very complicated systems like mobile telephones and data networks and things like that. And he just used this very modern knowledge and married it to the Quaker consensus and some chaos theory. And this is, sociocracy is what came out of it. If we imagine how most decisions are made and compare it to how to ride a bicycle, we would say that we have a meeting and then we decide how to ride this bicycle. And when we decide how to hold the handlebars and how to do the pedaling and how to get on and how to get off and all that, and then we'll do as we decided or try to, and then we'll fall off and then we'll have another meeting. So the idea is to rather make a system that takes decisions and works, gets experience, get wiser, and corrects its movement. And this is how we do bicycling. We go in one direction and then we're about to fall, and then we just do a little thing like this, and then we do a little thing like that. Right? So it's more about getting a very fast action decision process. Fast decisions that are not meant to be perfect for years, but that are meant to make good enough for now, safe enough to try, and then we go, and then we get wiser, and then we correct it. Right? So this is about the process structure. It's about getting the thing running. Then this decision-making process, I'll get back to that, but the point of it is that it's working in small groups, rather small groups, less than 40. So how to break up a big organization in Holland.
What is the minimum? The minimum persons in the group?
One.
Okay.
Actually, you can do psychology with this as well, and have your voices in your mind working that way as well. But it's said that 40 is the maximum, and it takes trained people to make a 40-person group work. So you can imagine that they have a big organizations. They have that in Holland with 2,000 or 3,000 people. It works with a lot of groups, and how to connect all these groups so they work in a very efficient way. That's some of the news about this. This is called the circle structure. But to get the leading edge of anything, like an organization, we need two things. We need a fair participatory decision-making process, and we need a clear idea of where we're going. Common aim. And when you look into aims or purpose statements, you will find a lot of confusion. Lots and lots of confusion. And everybody's good intentions is just bundled into a big heap. The more the better, because then you more or less get inclusive, but you also get confused. So one thing is, and this is not especially sociocracy, it actually goes for all organizations, but this is some pure reasoning that is working well in all organizations, but it's definitely necessary in a fast-working and efficient organization. So how to create a common aim? What we see is that in sociocracy there are specified meanings to certain words. So the vision means looking outwards in the world, imagining how does the world change because of our work? Why is this a better place? So that's one thing, that's the vision part. The mission is what are we doing? What are we doing to make the world change? This is something different. It's a bit more concrete, right? And then comes the aim. So what do we want to, what is the outcome that we are aiming for at a certain point of time or first? The interesting thing is that we can see that these different statements, they have different functions. The vision needs to be wide and broad and beautiful. So everybody can see their place in it, and people are different. Right? So this gives the power, this is the inspiration to want to join here and to want to work here. It needs to be wide and beautiful. But then we need to have it more one-pointed. And excuse my PowerPoint skills. You can see here is the vision, and then comes the mission. And then I put something here which is in all organizations. It's peace and love. It's also abstract, but it needs to be there. And then the aim. For instance, if we say we want to change the world in a certain way, we are teachers, we are permaculturists, we are therapists, and this is the kind of work we do. And we want to establish a center in Denmark in 3 years. Can you see that? That's the aim. And if we mix that, if we confuse that, then we very often get into conflicts, because what is most important? To change the world, do something in Denmark, teach, permaculture, whatever. Can you see that? So to make this distinction between the wide line of power and then the focus of the aim, that's very important. If you don't have a common aim, no consent or no decision-making process is really working. And any decision-making process will profit from this. Next thing is that the consent decision that is used in sociocracy is different from consensus, but it has some familiarity. Consensus respects that somebody doesn't want this, even if it's only one person. That's usually called a block, if somebody blocks a decision. In consent, there's no blocking. The point is not to decide whether a proposal is good enough to do it. It is to create a proposal that is good enough. So when somebody is having an objection in consent, then it's not a block, it's a contribution to improve the proposal. Can you see that? It makes a whole lot of difference. And then, it's not, what is also a problem in consensus is that because it is difficult to get to agree on a decision, it's also very difficult, usually, when you have had a decision, to change it. So consensus systems tend to be very conservative. So to get a system that is not conservative, we have to do something. I'll get back to that. But just to notice that we want to not make perfect decisions. We want to create something that is good enough for now and is safe enough to try. And then we build into all the proposals, all the decisions that after a certain time we will evaluate and we will change it. We may even have a so-called sunset clause, which means that we have a decision and it goes for 1 year and then it's off, unless it is created again. But it's very important to keep this dynamism, to keep the thing working and to keep it moving. Just like a bicycle, it falls when you stop. So the objections cannot block, and they have to be paramount, they have to be important, and they have to be argued. You have to explain it, which is another difference from sociocracy to democracy. Democracy had a certain discretion. You could make secret statements, you could make your resistance on a secret note, and nobody knew who was doing it and why. And that was necessary when you had dictators that could kill you or something like that. But if we want transparency, and if we want to release the full potential of the collective intelligence and the collective wisdom, then we need to know. So we have to create the trust and the structures that people feel safe to tell why they are having an objection. For the reason of the proposal, but also for another reason. Because if you have, our minds are like that. That if there's some black spot, we will start guessing. And if somebody is having resistance towards our good ideas, we can't imagine that it's something else than they have bad ideas. So this is how we create mistrust and paranoia. Is to deal with that, we simply need to know what is there. Right? So this is about the transparency.
Sorry.
Pardon?
Means of greatest importance.
Yes, it has to be important. And one thing you can say, if you have something, I have a gut feeling or something, but I feel that if we do this, I'll have to leave the organization. That would be important, even if it's not argued yet.
Frans, sorry. If I understood, so the person who makes some emotional resistance,
Yes.
somehow has something to say.
Yes.
So it can block, but then it can also give some clues or some ideas, new ideas for the proposal.
The idea is that it doesn't block, it slows down the process.
Yeah.
And now investigate what is the problem, and we want to make you comfortable with the decision as well. So if you just have a gut feeling, but it's somehow important, we will try to help you. It's a facilitator's job to create the atmosphere that you will be respected, you will be heard, and we will even help you, because we need your information. It's a very different thing, because in consensus, you ask for consensus, you have the idea that if you are resisting, you're somehow negative or something like that. We really, as I said, we ask for the objections. We don't ask for consensus. So, I'll just explain very briefly how the process is, because one other thing that makes this system efficient is that it has a very rather rigid structure to the discussion. So instead of having somebody having a proposal and then get all your opinions and the opinions about the opinions and all that, That's the usual way of discussing things. You start out by a round and work a lot in rounds because it creates equality. Instead of just talking in the sequence that people raise their hands, working in rounds gives everybody a place, gives the idea of the circle. We have present proposal, then a round of clarifying questions, and then we have people ask questions until they're finished. And when they're finished, they know what they're talking about. We save a lot of time, because there's a lot of discussion going on in ordinary democracy where people are discussing things that they really don't understand yet, because questions haven't been asked yet. So just dive into all the discussion. Instead, we have clarifying questions until the clarifying questions die out. Then we know what we're talking about. Then we have short reactions, a round where everybody's saying, I like this proposal because, or I don't like it because. And no reactions to the reactions. This is one round. Finished. And then something may have come up so that the proposer has misunderstood something, and he has to just change the proposal. For instance, I had this exercise in Sweden recently, where we just took up some proposal, and then somebody proposed that there should be certain places around in the area where the men could go and pee on the trees, because that would be good for the trees, and it would save water and for something. And then there was a woman, she had some resistance to it, but it showed up here because she found it discriminating. She also wanted a tree to piss on. And maybe she would have voted against it. But what he realized was that he was some kind of misunderstood politeness. He had said that it's only for the men. Of course it's not only for the men, so he just changed the proposal.
We can piss on trees.
So if the women want to pee on the trees, well, go ahead and do that. So there's a quick amendment of the proposal. And then we ask for the objections, because now we are going into the creative part of the process. And the first round is just asking, do you have any objections? And one answer is just no objection. You don't have to say why you like the process. You don't have to argue for it, because it is assumed that if there is no objections, then it's also approved. So you don't have to argue for. All the arguments for have actually been done up here. So the arguments for and against are not actually getting into contact. You see that? This does something to the group. It helps the group not split. So now we get the objection, we find no objections, I have an objection. We note the names. Second round, we take the objections and see what are the objections. And third round, we negotiate the objections one by one. So what would it take for you to approve this proposal? How would we need to approve or change this proposal so you will let go of your objection? Take them one by one. And when that's done, then it's finished. Almost. Because we always need to celebrate. This is very often forgotten. It is a difficult process to take decisions. And every time we actually manage to create a serious agreement, we unify a lot of things, and we have to stay there for a moment and enjoy it. So this is also stressed here. This is how we decide on an issue. I have in vain tried to think of a proposal that we could create and try to do in this group, and I haven't really found one. But there's another one we could do, which is a bit easier. It's how to consent on an election. When we elect a person for a job, the process is a little bit different. And one of the things in sociocracy is that you can actually, if you have an issue like, are we going to have our next conference in Denmark or in Norway? We can say we can have discussed that forever. And there's no right or wrong. So what we can do is to consent to a drawing of lots, or to even to a majority vote. We can consent to that. But if we don't, the basic is that to anything we do, there has to be consent to it. So we can't just overrule somebody by voting. But if everybody says it's okay, just take a majority, then we can do that. But we can't do that in elections. In elections, we always have the consent process. And for instance, if we take a job, a leader of a group, for instance, we have, let's say, a kitchen group, then we describe what is the kitchen leader supposed to do. So there's a description of the role. And one thing I forgot to say is that there's no volunteering before the process. If you remember situations where people have jumped up and say, I want to do that, then very often you realize that they'll get the job. No discussion whether they can do it, because it's somehow impolite to not accept an offer of volunteering work. But it's not always a good thing. And another thing is that there could be another person there who also wanted to come in, and which was actually maybe a better fit. So what happens is that nobody is asked to volunteer. We start with the role, and then we have everybody write on a paper slip, who would I like to see in this job? I, Frans, nominates Dada for this job. And everybody makes a note. In this way, nobody is influenced by each other. It's about the equality part. It's not secret, because next point is that the slips are collected, and then everybody is asked, Frans, you nominated Dada, why? So now I will tell why I think he's a good fit for this job. And we'll get everybody into the process, and sometimes somebody will not be nominated that wouldn't nominate themselves. And they will be praised. I'd like to see you in this job because I think you make good food, and I also noticed that you have leadership skills. So in this way we get, when we get the arguments in favor of the nominees, we get wiser. We learn about the nominees, and we also learn about the values of the people who nominate. What is it that I actually value in this job, yeah. So we get wiser this way. And then when we've heard the arguments, there's a second round. Does anyone want to change their nomination? Because they've heard ideas about other things. And then the facilitator makes a proposal based on arguments. And then he doesn't elect the person, he makes a proposal. He just chooses the one who has the strongest arguments, maybe also looking a little bit that if very many people are nominating a certain person, he will also consider that. Another thing he will consider is a person who nominates himself. That's also a good point, because this means that this person has the confidence to do the job. So this is an estimate that the facilitator makes. He makes a proposal, and then we take the objection round. And here's where the difficult things will happen. If somebody has an objection to a certain person, then we'll find out. And then we can negotiate. Will it be okay with this person if he gets a course? Or if it's only for 3 months? Or maybe we just take another nominee. That's up to the facilitator in the group to find out what do we do here. But the purpose is to find not the perfect person, but a person that is supported by everybody. And we could make such...
Sorry. So, if someone is nominated by somebody else and they don't want to accept the nomination, they say so at that moment, right?
No, they actually say it in the objection round, and there's actually a little formality about that, is that when you take the objection round for a certain nominee, you ask him last. Because then you get the information, and he gets the final word. If he doesn't want to, for some reason, of course, he has the objection to say, I don't want to do this. So he can stop it, but we want the information. And one of the basic things about this is to get wiser, get to know each other, because the better we know each other, the better we agree, the better we can respect our difficult points and our bad days and all that. To get to know things. And sociocracy means leadership from socios, which means fellow people, people who are fellows in some way, people who know each other, as opposed to democracy, where demos is understood as a very large number of people, but we can't know each other. So it's very much about getting the strength of a small group where people know each other. So we want the information, and we create the trust that this is a good thing.
Frans, you said don't try to get the perfect one, but the one with the most support.
Yes?
But if you feel somebody is really the best,
Yes?
and with the arguments you can bring it forward, then it can change.
Yes, you can say if he is the best, but if he doesn't have the support of everybody.
Yeah, but with the arguments maybe the support can change.
Yes, that's true. But you can't, the problem is that we very often look very narrowly to a certain situation. And then if we go for the best, very best thing for this thing, then maybe it's also too expensive. And then it destroys something else in the structure. So to get the consent from the whole group is very important.
And the second round, after hearing all those arguments, is does anyone want to change their nomination?
Yes. So if you have very strong arguments that this person is the perfect person, then you may have stronger nominations in the second round, but it will come down to the objection round whether he is selected. Yes?
So you have to do that for every paper slip?
Pardon?
You have to do that for every paper slip?
No. You collect the paper slips, and you use the paper slips to ask people, you nominated this one, please tell us why. So we get the information about all the nominees. Yes? But we don't have the discussion of proposals for everyone. Are you with me? No. Okay, we can try and do it, actually. So I suggest that we could make a little, well,
Just have a question to the role of the facilitator.
pardon a little bit louder.
The role of the facilitator.
Yeah.
Because is he elected and is his role neutral? Is he allowed to vote or to put in? I'm thinking it can twist the whole power.
Yes, good question. He is, and he is elected in exactly the same way.
Okay.
So if he is somehow abuses his power, it will of course become a problem for him. But he does have some marginal influence here, where he chooses which one to nominate first, or which one to propose first. Right. So he has a personal judgment here, but it's the proposal, it's not the decision.
The computer is there in the screen 7.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Election, yeah. I I suggest that we just try and make it a process here. And we are a little too many people to do that this way, but I think we can make an intermediate kind of way to do it that Diane Christian uses sometimes in eco-villages, is that we have a group that is actually doing the objection round, but everybody can participate. With ideas for instance, a solution of a problem, or clarifying questions or things like that. But let's say we want a person to be in charge of the gardens here in Anandagaori. Is there anybody who knows somebody? We've tried to make a group of about 7-10 people or something like that, who wants to be in that circle. Okay, so let's say we just have you sit here in a little circle here. And it doesn't have to be a person in the group. You can nominate a person outside the group, and you can also say we want to hire somebody if we don't have a qualified person. But the process is we need to describe the role, and in this context I'd say that we'll have a round also, so that people can say what do we want from this person. What is the role? Because I don't know much of that. So the first round is to describe the role. It's very important to keep the focus on the role, because the person we try to keep him safe. It's not about friendships. So the first thing is to have a round where everybody just says a couple of words about what do we want from this person. Okay? Will you start? Can everybody hear?
Yes. Nothing yet.
You may stand if you can better see better.
Or you can
Behind them?
Yes, it's rather fast, so you don't have to stand for so long, and then we'll have a break afterwards. So if you can't see, please come up here. Okay, if you'll just say a couple of words about what do you think we need for a person that is in charge of the gardens.
Okay, that person should have a good knowledge of forest gardening. That's one thing.
Yeah?
Yeah? And a good skill at recruiting people to help. And a willingness to get other people to do heavy physical work.
Okay. Finished? And you?
It should have a broad view overall and capacity to inspire others to join the network.
Okay.
Yeah, should have a sense of responsibility and also understanding the neo-humanistic aspect of the plant and interaction between plants and humans.
Okay. And you?
I'm not sure what to add to all of those. Can I say I just agree with everything that's been said? Because I think it's...
Yes, you can say we don't have anything to
I
add.
don't have anything to add.
Okay. And you?
I had one thing, yeah, I think it's not enough just to have a good understanding of permaculture. You need to have a good understanding of the area that Anandagaori is situated in, and the experiences of other farmers and people around here, of what this earth can be used for, what is good with it.
Okay. So now we know the role. Oh yes, sorry. Excuse me.
So, that's okay. I'm kind of invisible.
That's a good quality to have for that role.
The person should also live here.
Okay. Anything else?
The person should love gardening.
Yes. The person should love gardening. Yes.
The person should be a good listener and understand how to implement what others around also living here want.
Yeah.
A person should be willing to develop and be educated or open to new things and new ideas.
Important point. Yes. Experts sometimes stick in their expertise. Yes.
The person should be able to create a good atmosphere, friendly, fun atmosphere among those involved, and at the same time be able to be pointed towards the task.
Okay. Okay. Shall we say that's enough? Then each of you take a slip of paper and then you give your own name on top of it and say you nominate a certain person. So if everybody has a pen, I can provide one.
From this group only, not from
No, they can actually nominate a person outside as well. Only then we need to ask him also.
Friends, at this time there are no subjects to be. It could be anyone.
Actually, it could be anyone. Yes.
Yeah, that would be good.
There is nobody applying for the job,
No.
so you would have a no.
It's mostly in a community when we choose when we elect people. But if we don't think we have a person, then we can hire somebody from outside.
So for this exercise, can it be somebody who's not in the room at the moment, or it has to be somebody?
Could be.
Yeah.
And it's always just one person?
Yes, one person.
And
Can I nominate myself?
You can nominate yourself. Yes, but you're not just. Well,
If you join the circle.
if you join the circle, you can. Okay.
What if somebody's nominated who's not here?
He'll have
We
to-
know that the one wants that.
Yes, then we'll have to. Of course, we'll have to have his consent later.
And then go
But-
back in the
yes.
circle and do it again.
But it's then it will be in a new decision process. But that will be part of the process because somebody could say, I just don't want to make a decision on somebody outside.
Yeah. They're not
Right.
going to have to
Then
contact
he can do
anyone,
that.
they're not going to.
Then he can do that in the objection round. He says, I want a decision now. Right?
Can you telephone that person?
Yes. So just now, you just write your own name and then the name of your nominee.
Okay.
No, I have to find out which is what.
Yeah,
So you have to write
Okay.
what it means.
Open.
Okay, so you've all done that. And nobody, so it's completely equal now. I need glasses. Here. So. And you. So, and it's, I'll just go for an end. I, Dada Krishna Sevananda, nominates Frederick. So please tell us why.
Frederick is shown an interest in gardening, shown a willingness to learn. He's young, he's relatively free. I think we could, if we offer him this position, he might come and live here and be a valuable asset to the community. And he's also got a close link with Rakesh, who I think will be coming and going and could inspire him and guide him from off-site. Yeah, and he's Danish, so he can speak with the local community as well. That's my reasons.
Okay, thank you. Vishvashanti, you have nominated Dana. Let's hear why.
Okay, he has a tendency to sometimes go away from Denmark, and this will hold him here strong.
That's a good point.
Okay? Yes?
And definitely a love for developing things here, and a very strong quality is to attract other people to help out, and attract many people to this place.
Thank you. Taraha Prema, is that you?
Yes.
You have nominated Rakesh. Why?
When we discussed different qualities, I felt he had most of them. Of course, the weakest point would be that he might not like to live here for very long, but I know that his knowledge of permaculture involves that you don't have to be tied to the place to make the system work. So I still think he has funded knowledge and he's open to learn also new things. He has overview.
Thank you. Trila Kesh,
Yeah.
you have nominated, I can't see you, Oskornat?
Omkanat.
Omkanat,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, he already lives here, and he already has knowledge of many things. Gardening is not one of the things that he has been most inspired to do, but in any case, he's living here, and he could be able to develop those skills alongside many other things. And that's why I think that if he gets inspired to do gardening, then that would be a great success.
Okay. Lolita, nominate Rakesh.
Yeah. I nominate Rakesh because he has extensive knowledge and understanding what permaculture is. And I'm just thinking that if I was in his shoes and I had the possibility to this much land with this many dedicated people around him or support, I would just jump for it. So he really does have a lot of these qualities.
Thank you. And then says Sumati, recruit somebody from outside.
I was sort of thinking whether to write within Anandamarga from the woofing movement or whatever. But I think for me, the reason why I said that is because going around for all the points that is needed is this the aspect of having somebody who is living here and who is who also knows the Danish culture and just from my immediate thoughts, that wasn't something that I saw right away that I know here, although there's another round.
Okay. So,
I have a question, because before we had this, the qualities what a person needs to have. Should that not be going before that in this
you
round?
can say that, but it's also, I did that, we had this very brief one. Usually you would have a discussion, you have a decision before that, that we want to hire one. Then we have the election. And in that process you would have to describe the person's, some of the qualifications or requirements. So usually there would be a description of the job when we are starting this process. So this was just a way to fill it out somehow. So we kind of repeat a little bit now. So now we heard your reasons for your nominations, and now I'd like to ask you, given the arguments that you've heard, is there anybody who wants to change their nominations?
I do.
You want to, please?
Yes.
Do. Anybody else? You're welcome. Everybody? Okay, so the others stay with their nomination. Okay, so now I'm the facilitator and I make a proposal. It's not an election, it's a proposal. And based on the arguments and the numbers, I want to ask you whether you would have any objections to Frederick And Frederick is not exactly here, so we can start anywhere. So I'll start with you. Do you have any objections to Frederick as the garden master?
My only objection is I don't know very much about him. I don't know him.
Yes.
So
That's not really an
not
objection.
Really an objection. It's
No.
just
So this is about
abstention.
safe enough to try.
Yeah.
Do you trust the other people?
Right.
Okay.
I can only tell the same. I have no clue who this person is, so
Yes.
but I trust that
Yes.
Dada proposed a wise one as well.
Yes. Another thing would be that we ask him or interview him or something, but it's a negotiation now. So if you have an objection, if you really feel unsafe about this, so we'll say, what will it take for you to feel safe about Frederick? Right? So we meet him or something like that.
Yes. Normally I prefer to meet people, then I can feel their vibrations,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it makes me safe.
But can you live with it for the
I can
time
live
being?
because I know Dada and I trust Dada's choice. Yes,
Beautiful.
so for me
So, do you have an objection to Frederick? Do you have an objection? Do you have an objection to Frederick?
No, I just want to hear from himself.
You want to hear
What
from
he would-
himself? Okay.
Thoughts he would have on the matter.
And of course, we all will have to have his consent as well. But for the time being, we have a decision.
So does the objection comes only within the circle?
In this case, we could also have some objections here, but it's kind of a border instance now.
I have a question. Is it okay if in this circle is the whole family on them? They are very near related to each other.
Pardon?
You understand? If, for example, there are parents with 5 children
Yes?
in this circle.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yes. You can do it in all kinds of contexts. Actually, there's one of the sociocratic trainers who had a workshop on sociocracy in families. Because there's also all the kinds of games and meetings and power plays happening, and to apply these principles in the family is completely valid. Yeah.
I would like to know for how long time is it valid, that decision? Okay, now you're chosen one. How long time is it valid?
Oops!
And can you take back your nominate if you're not satisfied with the job the person's doing? Can you then say, I don't support it any longer, and you call in for a new discussion?
Two very, very important points. And oops, that's what I forgot to say, is that we always elect people for a specified term. Never forever. So it would be, for instance, it could be a negotiating parameter to say that, well, I'm not quite sure about Frederick, but half a year, that would be okay. If we, starting with 1 year, say, well, if somebody's, no, not a year, but okay with a year, with half a year. So that's a parameter, and it's always there in sociocracy, and I forgot, and I shouldn't have done that. The other thing is about to withdraw your consent. I'm not quite sure, actually. This has been, I've discussed it with some of them, and as I said, I didn't say that. I have had some introduction courses in sociocracy. I'm not a qualified expert or something like that, but I'm one of those who knows a little bit about it. So I'm not quite sure about the withdrawal of consent. But of course, if there's a serious matter going on and something is threatening, like somebody's leaving the community or something, then you will have a meeting and you will do something about it. But I believe that generally the idea is that you give it a time frame and then you respect the decision to that time frame. But you never expect it to respect an election forever. So that's one of the things you do in the house.
It's a serious problem with the democracy today that when you vote the whole, your voice, your vote, you give it away.
Yeah.
And then you have to be silent for the next 4 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's true, and it's and then this is where we need for the. I think this is better for several reasons. One of them is that we can make it as short as we need, and the other thing that we're not only giving a yes or a no. We actually say something with our voices. We actually voice our opinions and our wisdom and our intelligence, and that's important. But we can only do that in rather small circles. Yeah.
Yeah, I just was going to ask you about how big of a circle can this work with, maximum to be?
The general experience is that with trained people, we can go up to 40. Then we have to split up. But it's not bad, because what I will tell you, I think we'll just have a short break, have a pee and just move a little bit. And then I'll tell you how to break up the organization and make sure that there's still contact.
Somebody, can I just, I wanted to add something to what you're saying about the term and whether you can withdraw your vote. I agree that it is problematic today when you have political terms of 4 years. However, the point of this is also that it's you're not choosing the perfect person. You're choosing the person who's going to be supported by everybody, and the success of the person also depends on that support. So if you have a system where it's easy to withdraw your support at the slightest little hiccup or problem, that's also very problematic, because then that person does not have your support, and consequently will probably fail because of that, and not necessarily because of the person was not able to do the job. So I think that needs to be factored in as well. That
Yes, but one thing that makes it very problematic in ordinary democracy is that the minority has to live with for 4 years.
Yes.
This is not the case here, because you have your objection from the very beginning. So you have quite a lot more influence here. Yes?
Like in this example, when there is a new nominate, should there not be a new round with clarification and objections first?
If there's, if there is a new, if there are changes to the nomination,
like we have now, huh, with her.
yes, there was. She changed her nomination, but what I didn't say, I should have said that, was that you nominated a person that was already nominated.
Yeah. But she can have other clarifications.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I'm sorry. That's true.
For another name.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. And I should have asked you your reasons.
Yeah. And then the others could give objections again.
Yes, because the objection round comes after.
Yeah, yeah.
The nomination change round comes, and the final objection round is the end. So there's basically only one objection round.
Yeah, but I'd also like to ask you, you chose to propose Frederick.
Yes.
But there were equal votes for Frederick and Rakesh.
Yes.
But you could have
Is it your vote?
It's I have a marginal influence there, but it's only a proposal, and if you object to it, I will have to do something, and it might be to take another one. I will have to respect your objection.
So
But-
we have
Because
to
I was
respond
thinking that-
immediately, kind of.
Yes.
you could have objected. I would rather have.
Yeah, I was hoping, I actually thought that, okay, they have 2 votes each, you would take Rakesh in
Yes.
another round
Yes.
again.
But that's again, we don't want to get into really discuss whether Rakesh is better than Frederick.
No.
We only want to have one who's okay, and if it turns out that he's not okay, we'll do something about it. Because we are trying to avoid this kind of comparison.
But so actually,
Why?
in fact,
Why?
your
Why?
choice
Why?
was
Because
the,
it creates personal tensions.
Yeah.
We have a job and we have a person, and if it's okay, then it's okay. To discuss whether Frederick is better than Rakesh.
So I sense that in order to speed things up, this extra ability is given to the facilitator.
Yes.
To just spontaneously, or make a proposal based on the information that's been given there.
Yes.
Right.
In sociocracy, there is a little kind of estimate on the facilitator's part. I will just mention, there is a variation of sociocracy which is called holacracy. It's an American adaptation, has something put into it and taken out of it, and one of the things is that especially this process, there's quite formal rules about how the facilitator does that. So he's not doing anything on his own judgment. He counts the nomination. If there's one more of it, he'll do that. He'll decide whether one has nominated himself. He'll value that, but it's mechanic. It's sort of rules. So there's quite a lot more rules into holacracy, but some people find that more assuring, and other people find it very difficult. But in sociocracy, the practice is that the facilitator has a little bit of a judgment, but he can't decide. You still have the objection, and he is elected as well. So if he does that in a bad way, then he will get out of business.
What happens in an election of governor is quite easy, I suppose, but what happens in an election of a political nature? What happens with canvassing for votes and all that sort of stuff? How does that fit into society?
At the moment, that is a very theoretical problem, because at the moment sociocracy hasn't aspired to go political in that way. It's been discussed how we're going to go about that. But it is a theoretical problem at the moment. I think the biggest organizations at the moment are corporations and non-NGOs with about 2,000 to 3,000 people. So it's not exactly politicians we're talking about. Right. I think we need a little break.
Yes.
So if you just go out and get some air, and 5 minutes, 10 minutes or something, but not too long, because